Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to the Number One Show, the show where I tell you about all the number ones, jumping on points, and one-shots that I read this week, and help you decide what you might want to pick up at the comic book shop. As always, I want to say thanks to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping me out with the show. If you are ever in the Kansas City area, check them out. They're fantastic, and we appreciate everything they do for us here on Geekvolution. I've got a lot of books for you this week, and a really eclectic assortment, and a lot of really good new books that I am extremely excited about, especially some new indie stuff, and some creator-owned things by some really talented writers and artists, and a couple of people that I was really surprised to see their names on when I finished. A couple books that I didn't bother to look at the writer as I was reading, and then got to the end and said, oh, that's who wrote that. Interesting. And really excited to get to those and tell you about them. A lot of really great, original, fresh sci-fi stuff. Can't wait to tell you about it. Let's go ahead and jump right into it with IDW, and so we got 3 IDW books this week, and we're going to start with Back to the Future number 1. Of course, Back to the Future Day was this week, was on Wednesday, and really cool that happened to line up with New Comic Day, and that IDW and Bob Gale and the folks behind Back to the Future were smart enough to get this out on the day that, of course, Marty McFly and Doc Brown go to the future, and all kinds of tie-in things, of course, including this comic. And this is a thing I never thought I'd see. More stories in the Back to the Future universe headed up by Bob Gale himself. Really cool. Bob Gale, of course, has had something of a history in comics and has gone on record in interviews to say that certain things in Back to the Future were inspired by things in comic books. He is has not only written comics, but grew up with comics and loves the medium, and so it's really cool to see this stuff being done here. So the Back to the Future comic is not really about time travel. It's not like a sequel to the Back to the Future. It's not Marty and Doc flying around in the DeLorean. It's basically filling in some historical gaps, and it's about what I expected it would be, knowing that going in, but I think it's pretty good, and I enjoyed a lot of the stuff that's filled in this first issue. So there are 2 stories here. There's kind of a main story and a backup feature. The main story is written by Bob Gale. Plotted, actually both of these, plotted by Bob Gale, but written, this first story, by John Barker, with art by Brent Schoonover. And this is the story of how Marty and Doc first met, and also tells us a little bit about how Doc first burnt his house down. A lot of things that we're told about in the movies that these comics are going to try to fill in. By the way, it's going to be interesting to see if this really takes off and if there's anything past this miniseries, because Gale hints a little bit about how maybe he'd like to do some more stuff even after this miniseries. And if mostly what we're doing is filling in gaps, I'm not sure just how much mileage, no pun intended, there really is for this. But anyway, I enjoyed a lot of the references and things. There's a little bit of kind of obvious lines of dialogue thrown in that are familiar things that are maybe a little bit obvious and intrusive, but it's kind of fun nevertheless. There's a part where Marty thinks to himself, think McFly, think. And it's like, yeah, it's okay. But I did really like that Marty's first meeting Doc Brown comes from his main character flaw of nobody calls me chicken, and begins with Needles, who, of course, in Back to the Future 2 is the guy who fires him because he's easily manipulated because he cares too much about how people think about him. And so I like all that character stuff that's there. And then the backup feature is really interesting, and odd choice, really. It's written by Eric Burnham with art by Dan Cherning, and it looks just like the Ghostbusters comic because it's the same team. It's written and drawn by that team, and so it kind of looks like the Ghostbusters comic. But that is about Doc Brown and his past in the 40s, in how he was first brought into working on the Manhattan Project, and that's a really interesting idea. So anyway, by and large, I really liked this. The framework in setting up the main story is pretty obvious. It's just Doc Brown talking to his kids, so that we get at least a little bit of something while there's time travel. But even that actually isn't set past Back to the Future 3, really, because it's while Doc Brown is, it's still filling in. It's while Doc Brown is trying to reinvent time travel so that he can make the time train. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, I liked this a lot, and really excited to see more stuff. And there's, I guess, again, each of these, besides the backup features, which I guess are telling one longer story, are going to be telling some like smaller individual stories to fill in the blanks. So there's a hint at the back of this that we might actually get to see some stuff from Back to the Future too. So that's kind of exciting. Next up, it's Star Trek number 50. I thought I would talk about this a little bit because it's a new story arc, and I'm always checking in and out of this book. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. It just depends on what the story arc is and what they're doing. This immediately appealed to me because it's a 3-part story. And oftentimes this book will try 2-part things that just, it doesn't have enough room to really tell the story it's trying to tell. This is in 3 parts. It's called Live, and then a Mirror Live flipped the other way, so it's a difficult title to say. And it is revisiting the Mirror Universe in the Abramsverse. It's gonna be hard to keep calling it the Abramsverse now that Abrams is no longer directing these movies, and he's you know, at least did the first Star Wars. But anyway, in you know, new Trek. And this time, finally, our crew gets to meet the Mirror Universe crew. We've done one Mirror Universe story, as far as I know. Like I said, I've not read everything in this, but I read the first Mirror Universe story they did in this, which did not have the 2 sides meeting, and if memory serves, it read a little bit more like In a Mirror Darkly, where it was kind of just set over there and it didn't cross. But it's been, I mean, probably 3 years since I read that, so I'm pretty sure that's what happens in it. But anyway, this is the first time in my recollection that, and I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's other, like, you know, extra canon things that have maybe done this, but this is the first time I've seen the 2 ships actually, like, meet each other. So it's not some of our crew pretending like they're the Mirror Universe characters, like in Mirror Mirror. It's the 2 ships meet each other, kind of like in Deadlock and Voyager, where you have the alternate Voyager, and they both are in this, you know, occupying the same space. This is both the ships. You get to see them together in the Mirror Universe, and I thought this was a lot of fun. I'm kind of excited to keep reading this, and I will probably get this whole story arc. Basically, our crew winds up in the Mirror Universe. They don't realize they're there. They show up at Ceti Alpha 5, and they meet Mirror Khan. And we haven't seen Mirror Khan before, so what's he like? And especially, what is the Mirror New Trek Khan like? And it immediately grabbed me, and I thought it was really cool. So if you like Mirror Universe, and especially if you weren't super satisfied with that first Mirror arc, this looks a little bit more promising to me. Next up, it's Transformers number 46. This is the beginning of a new story arc, and I don't read a lot of Transformers, but the couple of times that I have really enjoyed it, and this was no exception. Excuse me, this is the first part of a story arc called Conquerors. This is written by John Barber, with art by Sarah Peter Dorcher, and this is really involved, and I guess this is what Transformers is like a lot, and I'm always surprised by it every time I read one, but then it always kind of is like this. A lot of politics, a lot of religion, whole lot of characters, and surprisingly, I'm able to kind of tell everybody apart, even though they're all robots and not, you know, especially expressive. I'm impressed with how she manages to make these characters as kind of expressive as I think they possibly could be. And some of these, some of the Autobots and Decepticons have more human features than other ones do. So, I mean, Optimus, you pretty much just, you know, have his eyes, and that's about all you have to work with. But even with that, you can really usually tell what he's feeling, and that's pretty cool. And I like the old retro style that we're still doing a lot of comics that look like the, you know, original Transformers TV show. But anyway, we've got Optimus here, kind of going through a bit of an identity crisis, and there are characters who are looking at him as unto a god, and he's not comfortable with that. He's like Cisco at the beginning of DS9 as the emissary. He's not comfortable with people looking at him as this religious figure, but he is trying to understand it. it. And the problem, of course, is that his believing that he is part of that mythology, or part of that religion, excuse me, from his perspective, is something that he feels like he has to kind of figure out, because to my understanding anyway, he believes in this idea of Primus, of this god of the Transformers, and he is a Prime, and so he's supposed to be part of that, but he's not comfortable with it. He doesn't like it. So what does he do? And as often is the case with Optimus Prime, his loyalty to the Transformers is at odds with his loyalty to his friends on Earth, and he believes that everyone should have freedom. But the question here is should people who are even untrustworthy and who, on the whole, have proven themselves to be selfish, and they'll stab you in the back and that kind of thing, do you still have loyalty to them just because you have believed in them in the past? And what do you do? And Optimus has this really shaky thing with that, and that's what I really took from it. I think it's a decent jumping on point. It's one of those things where there are a lot of characters in this that I'm just not real familiar with, and I don't really know their personalities that well, but they are all really written pretty unique, and man, there's a lot of dialogue on a page with Transformers. I've never seen one of these comics that isn't like that. It takes 20 minutes to sit down and read the thing, and it's a lot of bang for your buck in that way. And everybody just gets plenty of panel time, and I really like it for that. I also really appreciate, I mean, it is paced differently than other sorts of comics, but it kind of has to be in order to be able to get all those characters in. That's the thing that I'm sure would turn some people off, and kind of does me too. But there's so much like witty banter, and everybody kind of has their own voice, so I'm sort of okay with it. Also, I really like the choice in the transforming effect on the page in this, where I've seen other things where you'll have a Transformer that's like in their normal mode, and then they turn into their car mode or whatever it is, and there's nothing dynamic to make it clear that from one panel to another that's what's going on. And here there's this kind of like residual thing where you see a couple of stages of it, and I kind of appreciate that choice to kind of create that motion. I think that comics can be a tough place to tell a Transformer story, and I think that it's done as well here as it probably can be. Okay, let's go over to Marvel now, and the first thing I want to talk about is what if Infinity, another one of these, what if Infinity, Guardians of the Galaxy #1, once again written by Joshua Williamson. I guess somebody just gave him all of these at once, and I don't know if we're going to have any more of these. This is the fourth of them. This is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Jason Copeland, and the question here is, what if the Guardians of the Galaxy defeated Thanos? So you have the war with the builders, and then at the end, spoiler alert for Infinity, this is what happens at the end of Infinity, the Thanos ends up getting put in this like stasis thing on Earth that nobody can break through, and he's these big energy wall things, and nobody can get through it, and he's hidden by the Avengers, so nobody knows he's there. Or at least that's what's going on in this. I think that's how... I think they're hiding him in that too. It's just been a while since I read that, and a lot of Infinity didn't stick with me. It was just okay, and that's part of why reading these has been kind of weird, because like I read that, but didn't leave a big impression on me exactly. I like how it ended. That's about it. But anyway, so... this has been the best of these. I actually kind of enjoyed this quite a bit. Basically, we've got a story here from Rocket's perspective where he's telling some riffraff in a bar about how the Guardians defeated Thanos, and the way it happens is really interesting. His perspective on the Avengers and Earth and how dangerous it is to the rest of the galaxy is the thing I found most fascinating in this. I really like that idea a lot. There's a good point there in questioning whether or not some of these superheroes are causing more harm than good, and if they aren't more trouble than they're worth. There's a lot of that going on actually in some books this week, and of course that's like a classic thing to deal with this stuff. But it ended up working as a pretty decent plot twist at the end of this, without being a coming out of nowhere kind of thing. And it's also really funny. I like all the stuff from Rocket's perspective, and I've always liked his distinct voice, and I think Williamson more or less nails it. One thing that's weird about it is that he practically breaks the fourth wall a la Deadpool in this. Like, he calls the Marvel Universe, and everybody's like, what's the Marvel Universe? And he's like, we're just moving on. And it seems like he has almost that, like, self-aware, I know when I'm in a comic book thing, and it works in the moment, and it's really funny, but then when you really think about it, you're like, I don't understand why that is, but it's amusing. Anyway, this is the one of these that is a really good self-contained story that you don't find yourself wishing, or at least I didn't, that this was like 4 or 5 issues long. It really is one good, solid, self-contained story, and I was impressed with it. I think it's pretty good. Next up, Uncanny Inhumans #1. Speaking of things that I was a lot more impressed with than I thought I'd be, this is written by Charles Soule with art by Steve McNiven, and I used the word involved earlier to describe Transformers. That's how I would. That's a word I would use to describe this as well. This is a wonderful way to be introduced to the Inhumans, to many of the characters in this book, to the status quo of what's going on with the Inhumans versus the mutants and on Earth at large right now. I think this is, if you know nothing about the Inhumans whatsoever and you're curious about them because we're using them a lot in Marvel Cinematic right now, and because they are becoming a bigger and bigger deal in Marvel Comics right now for, obvious reasons, go ahead and pick this up. It's very easy to just jump right into this, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't know if this is a book I want to keep going with, but I was so intrigued by a lot of things in this. I like the situation that Medusa's in. She is kind of the face of the Inhumans, and she's having to do a lot of kind of public relations stuff with humanity, and is having to kind of toe that line, again, like we were talking about with Optimus, between her loyalty to to the Inhumans, and also to the Earth at large, because a lot of these Inhumans now are not people that were from Atalan, because their city was hidden away for the longest time, and they lived isolated, kind of like Wakanda, I guess, and she has this place in here where toward the beginning where the Inhumans save some humans, and then there's like this press conference, and everybody's, or not a press conference, but like the media show up and they talk to them about it, and they're really surprised that the Inhumans are putting their own lives on the line to help humans, and Medusa makes a speech, and it almost a prepared speech, and she says, this person is from this major American city, and this person is from Chicago, and like the Inhumans, it's more complicated than Inhumans and humans. These are people that thought they were humans all their lives, and all of a sudden they're Inhumans, and that seems to be the big distinction between them and the X-Men now, is that the X-Men, I mean, you still have that to a degree, where you have X-Men that, discover that they're mutants, and it's like, oh man, I'm a mutant now, but this, it's literally, I was a human and now I'm an Inhuman. It's different. It's that if you're a mutant, you're going to find out at some point that you're a mutant. But these Inhumans, they could have lived their entire lives and never known it, and it wouldn't have made any difference. So how does that affect how they see themselves as a member of this other race, and that kind of thing? And there's this sense of mutants now being kind of an endangered species, where the Inhumans are popping up all over the place now, and the mutants are getting getting almost like crushed underneath that, and the Inhumans aren't doing that on purpose. But Scott, and he's not in this book, but he's talked about a lot, mostly through Beast, who is working with Medusa on something mysterious that we're not really told about. And anyway, but Scott seems to have this idea that the Inhumans are a big threat to the mutants. I guess mostly just because there's so many more of them than mutants. I'm waiting for that to get fleshed out a little bit more. But I was also really interested in some of these characters that I wasn't familiar with really in the first place. Like Reader, he's fascinating. He's a blind guy who has these goggle things that what look like sunglasses that he can see through through this link up with a seeing eye dog, and so he literally, this might be a character other people are familiar with, but I just don't know the Inhumans very well, so this guy was new to me. I'm reading this as totally a novice to this book, but anyway, literally a seeing eye dog. That was really interesting, and I like what's done with him. I also like how this kind of reflects the, in a really interesting way, the status quo currently in real life in business between the Inhumans and the mutants. And that's, if we're gonna do this, it's kind of neat that that's coming into play with that, and then we're not just losing the mutants to the Inhumans and not, I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on, but obviously, like we're even talking in this book about the fact that the Inhumans are kind of supplanting the X-Men and that Marvel's making a bigger deal out of them right now, and they're kind of trying to put the X-Men in the background. So I think it's kind of neat that the book is about that instead of just doing that and hoping we'll kind of forget about the X-Men. It's very self-aware. It's very, it knows that we love the X-Men and that we don't want them to be in the background, so it's doing things with that. I really appreciate that. Moving on, it's the Astonishing Ant-Man #1. This is written by Nick Spencer with art by Ramon Rosmus. This was okay. There's a really cool idea in this that I thought there was quite a bit of comedy mileage this book got out of, which is this idea that there is an app. The phrase now, there's an app for that. There's an app for everything. In this, there's this underground, like, black market app for killing superheroes, and it's called Hench, which I think is absolutely hilarious, and it's being used by what's his name, the villain from the Ant-Man movie, Cross, and in order to try to kill Ant-Man, and I think, or at least he's trying to get his hands on it, and I thought that was a really cool idea. Ant-Man in this is it's an interesting status quo because he kind of has a supporting cast that's bordering right away on being an ensemble cast. It reads like it could almost turn into sort of a team book. It's what Ant-Man is always about, which is he's a screw-up, he's doing his best, but he's an ex-con and he still has too much of that mentality, and he often kind of gets in the way before he helps, but you still care about him because his heart's in the right place. There's some legitimately, in my opinion, heart-wrenching stuff with his daughter, where he's afraid she's going to get hurt because of something that happened in a previous arc. That's your, typical superhero making the personal sacrifice stuff. But I like how the power is relating to that, because he's constantly shrinking himself down and showing up to her ball games and things like that, and she thinks that he's he's disinterested and that he's one of those dads that's just never around, and he's actually always around, but she doesn't know it. And I like that a lot. It is a little too wordy for my taste. The dialogue and stuff is not punchy enough for just how many words are on the page. The pacing loses me a little bit. Overall, I liked this. I didn't love it, and I think that I like the flavor of the previous series, what little I read of it, a little bit more than this, but it is a decent beginning. Next up, here's a book that surprised me. It's Karnak #1. This is written by Warren Ellis with art by Gerardo Zaffino. This is another book about a particular Inhuman, and I saw this this week at the shop, and I went, Karnak? Really? We're making a whole book about this? If you loved Warren Ellis on Moon Knight, get this book. It's not more of the same, it's not exactly that. The flavor is similar, it's that kind of grit, it's that kind of minimalism on a lot of pages. There's more dialogue than there usually was in that book. That might partly just be because, though, that we're setting up some premise, some ideas, and making sure that everybody understands what Karnak is all about and what his what his worldview and ideology is. But I imagine we're likely to get issues of this book that are just Karnak going and doing things, and there's not very much dialogue on the page. There are, just like we have with Moon Knight, a few pages in this where there is very little, if any, dialogue whatsoever. It's very visually driven, it's really cinematic, and the gritty, really pencil-y look is serving this book really well. And like I said, that minimalism makes a lot of sense for this material. Basically, this is kind of getting us into, like I said, Karnak's philosophy, and if you're not, and I wasn't familiar with this character at all, it's kind of scary, but it's really interesting to kind of get in his head and think his way through this book. And this is a guy who sees the flaws of all things. He believes that things and people are one and the same, and neither really matter. And people are undisciplined, and that's why they give too much credence to people and to what happens to people. And if only they would allow themselves to be less sentimental and colder about things, they could achieve what they're trying to do. It's kind of the anti-compassionate Vulcan. It's like going on the other side of that logic, where ends justifies the means, do whatever you need to do to get a thing done, but you can justify it with this notion that ultimately, with this kind of nihilistic notion of, at the end of the day, people and things don't matter because everything will pass away. It's just a matter of time. That's really interesting. This is one of those things that we're seeing this all over Marvel. I didn't mention this with Ant-Man, but I feel like it's intentionally going out of its way to try to have a lot of its status quo look like the movie, so that people who come into it and aren't used to Ant-Man will feel at home. And this does that a little bit too, in that it brings in Simmons and Coulson. And but I like the choice because he's having to work with S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to deal with an Inhuman in this, and that's all I'll say about the plot. But I like the choice, and we're not doing anything with it yet, but perhaps we will down the road, of bringing in Simmons, because obviously she's kind of all compassion, and I like the idea of having her involved in a Karnak book. Anyway, I actually liked this quite a bit. Next up, it's my 1DC book for the week. This is Titan's Hunt, which is written by Dan Abnett, once again, of Abnett and Lanning. I've read a lot of his stuff in the past, with art by Paolo Sequeira and Geraldo Borges. I gotta say, or Borges, I think Borges is probably how his name is pronounced. This really surprised me. This is some of the best storytelling I've seen in a DC book in quite a while, and I wasn't expecting anything from it. I didn't know about this book. I didn't know what it was. I figured it would be pretty throwaway. What's got me really impressed with this book is the way Abnett, well, and I can't just credit him because it's more of an art thing than anything, but the way that these guys collaboratively are getting into these characters' heads and giving us very unique perspectives. And perspective is kind of the name of the game this week on the number one show. There are several books that I was impressed with because of the way a first-person perspective thing was handled. Not in a gimmicky way, in using the medium to show us what a person is seeing, not just through their eyes, but through their mind's eye, the way they're interpreting things with using their imagination. And that often, when it's done right, will really capture mine. What this does is it shows us a few characters that are classically Teen Titans characters. They're all disconnected right now, and there's this mystery where each of them is trying to remember something that they used to remember. There's some kind of amnesia thing, and it seems to be related to the fact that everybody thinks Dick Grayson is dead, but Dick Grayson, I guess, kind of has some of that too, so I'm not sure what exactly is going on yet, but it's an interesting, compelling mystery. And I just found myself, it's a really, like, emotional and really like human book where the action isn't really driving the story along so much as the downtime and these characters in the moment dealing with their everyday lives, but the the break in status quo being that they're trying to remember this thing affecting them and just their personal lives. Roy Harper is here at the beginning, and he is starting to fall off the wagon in drinking, and I remember Roy Harper having a drug thing. I guess in 52 he has an alcohol thing, or maybe he's had both. I don't know. I've not read very much stuff with him. I just know about the drug thing from talking to Eric and watching Arrow and stuff like that. So anyway, alcohol was new for me. But anyway, it is not done in a typical way. I found myself really feeling for him, and the whole thing is ultimately really sad. And I also like how we get into Dick Grayson's head, where he talks about how he sees the world as a circus, which might seem like an obvious thing, but I like the elaboration on that idea. The notion that that life is a circus. If you make the wrong move, it can affect the other people that are relying on you. I like that a lot, and I just thought it was really thoughtful way to approach this narrative, and that's a thing that unfortunately I just feel like I haven't seen a lot from DC lately, so it kind of it surprised me. And there's this interesting smuggling plot where you have this scary underground ring that is stealing metahuman body parts and selling them to the highest bidder, to rich people, in order to not only replace their limbs but also give them superpowers through their limbs. And I thought that, or not just limbs but organs and things. And I thought that was interesting, and it kind of creepy the way it's presented. And then I really liked the cliffhanger, and once again, it was done through a really cool visual perspective thing. I gotta say, I highly recommend this. I liked it quite a bit. Now we're going to go to the most disturbing thing I've read in quite a while, but probably the best book I read this week, and that is The Clean Room, #1 from Vertigo. This is written by, and as I said before, I didn't check this before I read this book. This is written by Gail Simone. I did not realize that as I was reading it. I was like, wow, somebody's got quite a knack for storytelling. And then I got to the end and said, oh, of course it's Gail Simone. And Gail Simone has written things that really freaked me out before. There's a Batgirl issue from last year or the year before that just really messed with my head. This is a whole new level. Written by Gail Simone with fantastic, breathtaking, but just horrifying artwork by John Davis Hunt. I can only describe this as chilling. If you are the kind of person that has generally read comics and felt like you can't be scared or mortified by a comic book because you don't have the sounds and the movement that go with it, and your imagination is for whatever reason not doing that work for you. I've talked to people. Somebody asked this question on the multi-topic extravaganza, and we tackled this a couple weeks ago, where somebody asked Vince and I if we feel like comics is a difficult place to scare people. If that's a thing you've had in the past, read this and get back to me, because I'd like to know if you weren't as creeped out and disturbed by this as I was. And I say that in a good way, and in the most loving way I can to Gail Simone. Gail Simone, you just freaked me the crap out with this book, and thank you for it, because this is one of those wonderful immersive experiences where while I was reading it, I couldn't put it down, and the whole world just went away. Especially with the opening sequence, and I really don't want to give very much away about this at all. I'll tell you the basic premise of this book. There's a thing that happens with a little girl at the beginning of this that just like really hit me sideways, and it's one of those panels where I found myself just staring at it, and I had a difficult time turning the page. And part of the reason that I say that sometimes you can scare me a lot more with a comic than you can anyplace else is because I control the pacing. And I control how long I look at a panel, move on to the next place. Of course, books are this way as well. But even with a book, I might linger on a line for a while and think about the implications, and it freaked me out. But with a comic, you can give me a horrifying, disturbing image, and it gets stuck under my eyelids, inside my retinas. I'll go to sleep with it, and it will haunt my dreams. And I think it's likely to happen with this book. I hope I'm not overselling it. This is the experience that I had, and I absolutely love it. It's basically it's about a room, and we haven't really seen it yet in the first issue, which makes it more haunting. There's this room that we're told is supposed to like make everything clear to you, and it's this really scary, disturbing sounding place. And we see a couple of different characters in this who look at things in this really haunting, nightmarish way, in differently from how they really are or how you would usually perceive them. And you see like normal objects and things that are turned into these hideous images, but still retain a little bit of the textures and pieces of what they look like. So it's done in this really imaginative, but like I said, just really mortifying kind of way. I guess the only other thing I'll mention is it tackles the theme of this idea of religion and self-help books and what the midpoint between those two things are. And that was a really cool, interesting kind of idea. I really don't want to tell you anything else about it. If you like horror comics, Scott Snyder's got a quote on the cover of this because he really liked this book. And it reminds me a little bit of some Scott Snyder horror stuff I've read. But this is even more, like I said, disturbing than anything I've read from him. But as I said, in a really good way. Anyway, if you like that kind of thing, you definitely should read this. I think it's great. Vertigo is back in a big way right now. When Vertigo lost Constantine, Hellblazer, to mainstream DC, it really kind of felt like Vertigo was kind of, on its way out, and like DC wasn't really paying attention to that imprint anymore. And I haven't been looking at Vertigo lately. I don't know if this is new or if they've been like this for a while, but the last couple weeks they've put out some things that are just classic Vertigo, and I'm really impressed with it. Next up from Dark Horse, it's The Steam Man. This is written by Joe R. Lansdale with art, and Mark Allen Miller with art by Piotr Kowalski. This is a fast-paced read. It goes real quick. It's really entertaining, and it is exactly what it sounds like. This is 19th century steampunk, and it reads. Basically, the idea is you've got a mech it's like a steampunk type mech that's run by an ensemble crew, this ensemble cast, and it reads kind of like space opera, like a space adventure. You've got all these, or like a submarine book. You've got all these guys that are running this big steam powered robot guy, and it's like they're on a starship or a sailing vessel or something, or any kind of seafaring vessel, and the whole story is about they're just trying to keep the thing going in order to fight scary alien threats and things. It's pretty cool. At the beginning, there's a big homage, or almost just straight up ripping riffing, however you want to look at it. War of the Worlds, you've got those kinds of tripod creatures, and they end up being killed off in exactly the same way they are in War of the Worlds. So you've got all that stuff going on. And I really liked all the old school technology in this and how exactly the Steam Man works, the details of that, and how that creates difficulties for our characters. And a lot of the conflict comes from just trying to keep the thing running. I really like that. I like the stylishness of the art. I like the red and yellow kind of color scheme. The only complaint I have about this is that I don't think that the language is necessarily appropriate for this material. I'm not sure why it has to be quite as vulgar as it is. Again, as I always say, I don't mind a thing being adult, and I don't mind it when it's not intrusive. It's just, this is a period piece that's happening long enough ago that I don't know that there would be this many F-bombs thrown around just in general, but even if so, I don't know that some of these people would be using the kinds of language they are. A couple of these characters are intellectuals, and I just don't know why they're talking this way, and everybody kind of talks the same in this book, and that's kind of my other complaint about it. The plotting is great, the art is great, got a little bit of question about some of the language. The last book I have for this week is from Boom. It's a fascinating psychological thriller called Cognetic. This is written by James Tynion IV. Once again, I was so surprised by that because he's been very hit or miss with me with Batman. Suddenly he's got his own creator-owned thing, and I think he's likely to start developing a following he did not have before if this book catches on at all. With art by, and equally impressive, the art by... I can't read my own handwriting, so let me make sure that I get this right. By Eric Donovan. So this is about a collective consciousness that takes over people through possession. And the basic premise here, and again, I want to try not to give too much away, but I'll give you the basic premise, which is pretty much that, and it's absolutely horrifying, that this consciousness, whatever it is, it's very mysterious, takes over a bunch of people at the Empire State Building and makes them all commit suicide by throwing themselves off. And the idea is that they're trying to manipulate the masses by scaring them with this ploy. And it's absolutely haunting, and it's about the individuals versus the masses, and there's this fascinating philosophy that's brought up in this that this collective consciousness has, that people are. It's funny because we have this kind of thing with Karnak too. This idea that that people think they're more important than they really are, or they're obsessed with this idea of importance. They have to be in denial about that. But of course, they look at things differently than Karnak. What their philosophy is, or its philosophy, depending on how you look at it, is that people are not really individuals, even though they think they are. That they really are cogs in a bigger machine, and that they waste a lot of time and mess a lot of things up by trying to carve out their own piece of a pie. And if they would just let themselves be what they are, things would work more efficiently, and they could just be what they are. And one of the things I really like about this visually is how colors are used, not in the artwork so much, but in the dialogue balloons. I've never seen this. Well, I have seen this before, but it's rare, and it's rare to see it used as heavily as it is here. We have a different color for the collective consciousness, so whenever they take somebody over, you can tell who is possessed by the color in the dialogue balloon. And the first time it happens, it's really odd and confusing, and you're wondering why it's in blue. And then as it happens more and more, you start to catch on. And so that's used as a clue, which is neat, because if this were happening in a television show or a movie or something, you might have some sort of a filter in the audio that would give you this hint that this person was possessed. Or you might just have them talk in a really creepy way, and maybe contrast that to the way they were talking earlier before they were possessed, however that was. And it's neat to see creative ways done with that visually, so that you still have that cinematic experience with it. I really like that. I like this a lot. It has the most creative and original two-page spread I've seen in a while, and one of those vertical two-page spreads where you have to turn it over, and that I was always making fun of in Spawn comics. This one's really effective, where you have to turn it over and look at it kind of like a pin-up, and then if you're reading it like that, somebody will walk in and assume that you're ogling something that is maybe inappropriate for children. This is inappropriate for children, but not in that way. Anyway, I recommend this a lot if you like science fiction, if you like psychological thrillers, and once again, it's a really haunting and chilling kind of thing, and I enjoyed it a lot. This needs to be optioned for a movie or a TV show. I don't know how much story. Well, this is one of three, so I suppose probably more than likely a movie. But this is a thing I'd really like to see on screen. Anyway, I thought this was a wonderful week for comics, and I hope you heard about something that piqued your interest, and you might go out and try something off the beaten path. The number one show has been wonderful for me so far in discovering new books and new creators and things outside of the superhero realm, and even some things inside of the superhero realm that I would not have otherwise hit upon, that have just really captured my imagination and made me really impressed with the comic industry at large right now. Several weeks in a row, there's been at least a couple, 3-4 things that have seemed just truly unique and absolutely fascinating. I want to say thanks again to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping me out with the show, and if you're ever in the Kansas City area, check them out. If you'd ever like to send me anything to review on the Comic Vault, you can always, or if you have your own comic and you'd like to see the number one talked about on this show, please send me a package to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 4733, Overland Park, Kansas 66204. I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you had a good time with it, and I will see you again next week on the number one show. I am Captain Logan, and happy reading.